So I'm going to be providing you with a couple of tips today on how to actually, get unstuck from perhaps the cycle of behaviour that you're currently in, but also how to actually implement, new behaviours, how to be doing what it is that you actually want to do instead of doing what you don't want to do anymore, right? So this came up because so I've been seeing a few people who have various addictions, and things like sugar addiction and alcohol, and even soft drinks and things like that, and they've just tried not to eat that thing or tried not to drink that thing, right? And they've really struggled. And the thing is that where the struggle is that when you say to yourself, I'm just not going to do it anymore, I'm just going to stop, the thing is that that thing is still in your mind and still in your head, and still kind of, you're still ruminating about it. And if you're still ruminating about it, then it's going to be triggering you to actually do that thing and think about that thing even more, right? So it's like saying, don't think of a purple elephant. Don't think of a purple elephant. Well, it's like, yeah, you've just thought of a purple elephant, even though, you've said don't think of a purple elephant. And so the same sort of system and theory applies with those habits and things that we want to actually get rid of. Whenever you think about that thing that you no longer want to do anymore, inevitably you're concentrating on that even more. And it provides a further trigger and cue for you to continue doing that thing. And so if you're constantly surrounded by the thing that you no longer want, and it's everywhere, well, then it's going to remind you to do that even more. Perhaps even cause you anxiety because you're thinking about the thing that you no longer want to do. And quite possibly you might be reaching out for that thing that you don't want to help you with the anxious feeling of thinking about the thing that you don't want to do anymore. Exhausting. So what do you do instead? What do you do instead? So here's the thing. If you're going to get rid of something and replace it with something else, you need to start concentrating and thinking about what you want instead, rather than thinking about what you don't want. So for instance, if you want to get rid of, drinking coffee, it's not enough that you just say, oh, I just don't want to drink coffee anymore. There needs to be, a healthy alternative, a replacement, something that you can do instead of drinking coffee. At the same time, from the same mug or a nicer mug that you choose to use from now on. So essentially, the first thing that you really have to do is look at what your options are and look at what the healthy alternatives are. Hi Jenny, thank you so much for watching. I'm just talking about creating, positive habits and how do we actually, replace the say, bad habits or unresourceful habits with new habits. And so the first thing that you really need to do is have a look at, well, what are the resourceful alternatives that you can use instead. So for instance, if it is, drinking coffee or drinking, soda or something like that, what is a healthy alternative to that you could do instead, and that you could, use as a prompt, as an alternative, as a deviation from the norm that you've created in your life. And so when you think about choice and you think about all those different options, then suddenly the old thing that you were doing before is no longer the only thing that you can do. So often I hear from someone that's very close to me, I've just got no choice. I just have to do this. I've got no choice. And the reality of the matter is that we've always got choices. Always got choices. And some of those choices are better than others, and some of them aren't. Some of them the choices are kind of between a rock and a hard place choices. So step one is really creating choice and looking at what are the options that you have available to you to replace that old thing that you want to get rid of. All right. And then secondly, what you want to be doing is using that or not just replacing that new thing, but you want to be doing that new thing very frequently, more so than doing the old thing, right? So for instance, a person that I helped recently eliminate soda from their from their diet. We talked about what were the healthy alternatives, and what could they do instead? And for them, it was drinking water with a bit of lime juice, drinking things like mineral water, and things that were healthy and cleansing. And so what ended up happening was that in order to crowd out that old thing, that old habit, and in this case it was soda, it was introducing and utilizing, all of these other alternatives and doing that more often than the old habit. Okay, and when you crowd out, it's called crowding. When you crowd out that old habit with the new habit, then there leaves much less room, much less space, and much less time and opportunity for you to fall back into those old habits. Much less time, much less opportunity to fall back into those old habits. So what ends up happening is that because you're doing the new habit so often, and in this case it was drinking water and all of those kinds of cleansing, refreshing drinks, rather than the sugary, corrosive drinks. What was happening was this person started feeling so much better, got back the clarity of mind, lost all the bloating and lost so much weight, and also there was just no opportunity. Right, the opportunities became less and less and less until the offending soft drink no longer became the choice for them, no longer became the first choice. And so that new routine and that new habit was implemented by doing it over and over and over again. It was with repetition. All right, so with repetition, you implement these new behaviors and strategies and alternatives, healthy alternatives to those things that you don't want. And you have to do them more than the old thing that you were doing. Okay, and I think that's where a lot of people fall down with creating new habits. They'll only replace it when they feel like that old thing. So for instance, if I was, if I was getting rid of coffee and I felt like coffee, and then I was like, okay, I'll just have a glass of water instead, that's, it's not really going to, fit the bill. It's not really going to satisfy me. It's not going to create a big enough incentive for me to just have the water and not the coffee. And so what I'll need to be doing in that situation and circumstance is having water often, having water all the time, so that, I'm feeling hydrated and refreshed, and that I don't actually feel the need to have a coffee to wake up or feel, a lot alert and alive and in this world with all of my senses present. So I hope that's been helpful. Firstly, it's about creating choice and creating alternatives, and then using that alternative and doing it repetitively and more often than the old habit that you no longer want. And so really what ends up happening is when you do this often and frequently, the neural pathways in the brain... Hi Erin, thank you so much for watching. What ends up happening is that when you create these new routines and implement these new strategies, and you do them often and you do them frequently, what ends up happening is that those neural pathways in the brain start connecting, okay? and they're connecting in a way where they're grouping together all those activities, those new resourceful activities, and a whole kind of network in the brain becomes connected and wired and strengthened every time that you do it. And that's why habit is really a gem when you're wanting to create new habits. You've got to do it frequently and often. And so when those neural pathways are connected and strong and easily accessed, in terms of it doesn't take a lot to trigger you to do the new behavior or habit, what ends up happening is that becomes then your new normal, your new average, your new thing that you do, your new habit. And the way that hypnotherapy supports that is that when you're in a really calm and rested state, such as hypnosis, when you're in a deep trance, that's when all of those helpful suggestions are given to the person, given to the client, so that it actually goes straight into the subconscious mind, and you don't have to consciously always think about that new thing that you're trying to implement, right? Because how many times have you wanted to, for instance, start a new diet or something, and you're like, oh yes, I've got to, drink green juice, or I've got to do this, or got to do that, whatever that diet is. And then you've gone through the day and you're like, oh damn, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing, or I slipped up and I didn't mean to. It's like, oh, whoops. And you really weren't consciously thinking about it. And that's the thing. When you've created routines and habits, whether they're good or bad, it doesn't take much for you to do it. You just go to the fridge, you get a piece of XYZ, and that kind of thing, and it's all sort of feels really normal and easy and habitual. Okay, and so when you utilize hypnosis and hypnotherapy, what ends up happening is that when you go and reach for that thing, or when you feel yourself getting a craving for something, those suggestions that I provide during a deep trance actually help you remember what it is that you're actually doing. Helps to bring to conscious awareness those habits that you're doing subconsciously, such as going through the pantry and going through a whole tray of biscuits or chips or something like that to the very end, and then being very shocked when you look down and you go, oh my god, I ate the whole thing. All right. And so with these suggestions in a deep, calm and in a trance state, it brings to your awareness all of those things that you're doing, all those habits that you're actually not aware of in the moment. And so when positive and other resourceful strategies are given to a person in deep trance, then what ends up happening is that those alternative suggestions actually come to mind more frequently. Whereas, when you're implementing a habit and doing it repetitively yourself, that does take a lot of effort, a lot of conscious effort. Whereas when you utilize hypnosis, it seems like it comes up more naturally. It's on the top of your mind, and it's more easily and frequently access those new resourceful things that you want to implement, such as maybe drinking water, or having an apple instead, or keeping your hands busy in some other way, such as drawing or knitting or whatever. So I hope that's been helpful to you, and been of service today in helping you change or create new habits. If you have any questions, please feel free to just write them down here, or send me a private message, and I'm more than happy to share further resources and suggestions with you. And I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.